The Bifrost shimmers, depositing the trickster god directly into the Avengers campus, a place he's more accustomed to destroying than residing. His arrival isn't marked by a grand, theatrical entrance, but by an exasperated sigh from Thor, who gestures towards a beaming, purple-clad figure. "Brother, meet your new instructor." Loki blinks, a smirk already forming, only to see it falter as he processes the identity of his teacher. MODOK. Yes, the floating, genocidal superbrain. The sheer absurdity of it nearly makes Loki laugh, but a quick glance at a stern-faced Captain America, overseeing the bizarre assembly, stifles his amusement. This isn't a joke. This is a program. For him, to learn responsibility, he scoffs internally. The first lesson begins with MODOK attempting to explain the nuances of interdimensional logistics, Loki's eyes glazing over within minutes. His attempts to subtly conjure a flock of ravens to peck at MODOK's oversized head are met with a force field, expertly deployed by Iron Man, who's watching from a nearby monitor, sipping coffee. This is going to be a long day. The initial training exercises are predictably a disaster. MODOK, in his surprisingly patient way, instructs Loki to levitate a single feather using only his focus. Loki, ever the showman, instead tries to conjure an entire banquet, complete with a self-playing harp and a miniature frost giant made of ice, all of which promptly melt or disappear in a puff of green smoke. Hawkeye, observing from a ventilation shaft, deadpants. "My cat could do better." The next task involves tactical stealth. Infiltrate the designated area without triggering the laser grid, MODOK drones. Loki, instead of creeping, teleports directly into the center of the grid, setting off every alarm and triggering a deluge of foam. He emerges, covered head to toe, looking utterly bewildered. Black Widow merely raises an eyebrow, jotting a note on her tablet. Even his illusions are wonky. A simple cloaking spell designed to make him invisible instead turns him bright pink and makes him glow. The Avengers watching the security feed burst into laughter, much to Loki's indignance. His powers, so potent in chaos, seem to short-circuit under the mundane scrutiny of structured learning. It becomes clear that MODOK alone isn't enough to wrangle the god of mischief. Soon, other Avengers are drafted into the Loki rehabilitation program. Wasp is surprisingly effective at getting Loki to focus on fine manipulation. She zips around his head, her tiny voice a relentless buzz of instruction as he struggles to reassemble a miniature helicarrier, piece by painstaking piece. No, that's the starboard engine cowling, not the port. Focus, Loki, focus. He snarls at her, his hands trembling with uncharacteristic frustration, but he continues. Then comes Ant-Man, whose lessons on perspective and the importance of seemingly insignificant details are delivered with a cheerful, almost oblivious sincerity that somehow disarms Loki. Scott Lang teaches him how to track tiny energy signatures, how to blend into a crowd by observing subtle human behaviors, all skills Loki usually bypasses with a flick of his wrist or a deceitful smile. He finds himself, against his will, genuinely listening to Scott's earnest explanations, even if he pretends to be bored. The oddest part is he's starting to get better at it. Vision takes on the mental conditioning aspect, challenging Loki to chess matches. These aren't just games. Vision subtly manipulates the board with his density powers, forcing Loki to anticipate not just his opponent's moves, but the environment itself. Loki, a master of strategy, finds himself constantly outmaneuvered by the android's calm, logical approach. It's infuriating yet captivating. He's forced to think in entirely new ways, beyond mere deception. Hulk, surprisingly, becomes an unlikely, albeit silent, mentor in controlling raw power. Banner explains the importance of channeling emotion, even rage, into constructive force, using himself as a cautionary tale. Loki, observing Banner's meditative practices, scoffs but finds himself mimicking a few of the breathing exercises in private, realizing the strange calm it brings. His magic, when he applies a semblance of this focus, becomes less volatile, more precise. He levitates a stack of books, not with a burst of green energy, but with a steady, almost imperceptible hum. The Avengers monitor him, a collective eye on every move, every twitch, every micro-expression. They're still wary, but a flicker of something new starts to appear in their cautious gazes. Director Fury watches it all from a secure S.H.I.E.L.D. outpost. His singular eye narrowed in perpetual suspicion. He sees the reports, the progress charts, the occasional outburst, and the surprising moments of quiet compliance. Agent Hill provides constant updates, detailing Loki's surprisingly adept problem-solving skills when faced with purely logical puzzles, and his equally pronounced aversion to anything resembling teamwork. He's a wild card, Director, Hill states, her voice even. He's learning, but for what purpose we can only guess. Fury grunts, scrolling through surveillance footage of Loki grudgingly helping Pepper Potts fix a minor circuit board issue. He'd done it with surprising efficiency, albeit with a constant stream of sarcastic commentary. The stakes are clear. If this program fails, Loki remains a threat, an unpredictable force of chaos. If it succeeds, well, that's an even more terrifying prospect for Fury. A Loki with discipline, a Loki who can channel his power with precision. The potential for good, or for an even greater evil, weighs heavily on his mind as he continues to scrutinize the screen, searching for any sign of deception. The Avengers' watchful eyes are constant. Tony Stark, always the engineer, assigns Loki tasks that require both magical manipulation and mechanical understanding. He expects Loki to fail, to resort to destructive spells, but Loki surprises him. While grumbling incessantly about the indignity of it all, Loki uses his magic to precisely bend a warped piece of metal back into shape, or to create a temporary force field to hold delicate components in place while Tony works. He even conjures a specific, rare alloy from thin air when Tony can't find it, claiming it was easier than listening to your whining. Bruce Banner encourages him to use his illusions for practical purposes, like creating detailed schematics for complex machinery or simulating stress tests on new alloys. Loki, initially dismissive, finds a strange satisfaction in the perfection of his conjured diagrams, a level of detail he rarely applied to his usual pranks. He's still Loki, still sarcastic, still prone to dramatic flair, but there's a new layer, a reluctant cooperation that unnerves the Avengers almost as much as his open defiance once did. The ultimate test comes in the form of a simulated threat, a full-scale alien invasion scenario. Captain America briefs Loki, Thor, and a small team of Avengers on their roles. Loki is assigned to infiltration and data extraction, relying on his stealth and illusionary skills, but without the use of offensive magic. He scoffs at the limitations, but a stern look from Cap silences him. Thor, ever hopeful, claps him on the shoulder. This is your chance, brother, to show them your true potential. Loki merely rolls his eyes, but a flicker of something, perhaps anticipation, crosses his face. He's been training begrudgingly but effectively. He's learned to control his power, to focus his intent, to think strategically without immediately resorting to chaos. As the simulation begins, he vanishes, a shimmer of green light the only indication of his departure. The Avengers watch the tactical map, a mix of apprehension and hope churning within them. This isn't just about a drill. It's about seeing if the god of mischief can, for once, use his powers for something other than personal gain or global domination. The question hangs heavy in the air. Can a villain truly be trained? Frigga, ever the patient mother, observes Loki's struggles with a mix of concern and exasperation. His latest attempt at a simple illusion spell has resulted in a flock of miniature, glowing sheep, bleating loudly and bouncing off the walls of his training chamber. Thor, meanwhile, claps him on the back, nearly knocking Loki over, and declares it surprisingly festive. Frigga steps forward, her hand glowing with a soft, golden energy. She doesn't reprimand him, but rather gently guides his hand, showing him how to focus his intent. The sheep vanish, replaced by a perfectly rendered, shimmering image of a single, majestic raven. Loki stares, genuinely impressed by the clarity and stability of the illusion, a stark contrast to his usual flickering, half-formed creations. A flicker of something akin to pride crosses his face, quickly masked by his usual aloofness. Later, during a routine patrol of the city's outskirts, a sudden tremor shakes a construction site. A partially built wall begins to crumble, threatening to collapse onto a group of unsuspecting civilians below. Thor, ever direct, prepares to charge in, but Loki, driven by an instinct he can't quite articulate, reacts first. He doesn't cast a grand spell. Instead, he instinctively conjures a series of sturdy, translucent force fields, strategically placed to brace the collapsing structure. The wall, instead of falling outward, collapses inward, contained safely within the site. The civilians look up, bewildered but unharmed. Loki, equally bewildered by his own swift and effective action, quickly looks away, pretending he was merely tidying up some loose magical threads. Thor, however, gives him a knowing, if slightly confused, smile. A montage unfolds, showcasing Loki's slow but discernible progress. He's still prone to spectacular failures. A teleportation spell lands him in a puddle of cosmic goo. An enchantment meant to calm a volatile creature instead makes it sing opera. But the successes are becoming more frequent and less accidental. He learns to create solid illusions that can withstand a light tap, to conjure small objects with reasonable accuracy, and to teleport short distances without immediate nausea. Thor often observes, offering surprisingly insightful, if blunt, advice. Sometimes, Loki catches a glimpse of Frigga watching from the shadows, a faint smile playing on her lips. He finds himself, almost unconsciously, trying harder, not just to outwit Thor, but to genuinely master the magic he once dismissed as trivial. One afternoon, alone in his chambers, Loki stands before a large, ornate mirror. He focuses, concentrating on a spell he's been struggling with: perfect duplication. He wants to create an exact replica of himself, not just a shimmering ghost, but a tangible, sentient copy. He breathes deeply, channeling his will. The air shimmers. A figure coalesces beside him, identical in every detail, down to the slight smirk on its lips. Loki raises an eyebrow. The duplicate mirrors the gesture. He speaks. The duplicate speaks in unison, its voice an exact echo of his own. For a moment, Loki feels a jolt of genuine satisfaction. This isn't a trick or a half measure. This is mastery. He dismisses the illusion with a flick of his wrist, the confidence in his abilities growing subtly stronger. A simulated training exercise pits Loki and Thor against a series of automated drones designed to mimic frost giants. Initially, Loki relies on his usual deceptive tactics, creating distractions and illusions while Thor handles the brute force. But as the drones grow more sophisticated, their individual approaches falter. Thor finds himself overwhelmed by sheer numbers, while Loki's illusions are quickly dispelled. A moment of panic flashes across Loki's face. Then an idea. He doesn't just distract. He creates a solid, illusory wall that funnels the drones into a tight choke point. Thor, recognizing the opportunity, unleashes a devastating lightning strike, obliterating them all. They exchange a quick, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't just individual skill. It was coordination, a form of teamwork Loki previously scoffed at. During a particularly intense magical lesson with Frigga, she presents Loki with an ancient, pulsating orb, radiating raw magical energy. His task is to contain its chaotic power, to bring order to its swirling essence, a feat requiring immense focus and control. He struggles, the orb bucking and flaring in his hands, threatening to overwhelm him. Sweat beads on his brow. He remembers Frigga's earlier guidance, her emphasis on intent and purpose. He closes his eyes, picturing the energy flowing into him, not to consume, but to be shaped. When he opens them, the orb is still, its chaotic energy coalesced into a calm, steady glow. Frigga smiles, a genuine, proud smile. "You have learned control, Loki," she says softly. "True control comes not from power, but from understanding." The tranquility is shattered by a sudden, devastating attack on Asgard. Unknown alien invaders, cloaked in shadowy energy, materialize across the palace grounds, their weapons firing destructive blasts. Chaos erupts, guards fall, civilians scatter. Thor immediately charges into the fray, Mjolnir blazing. Loki initially hesitates. This isn't a training exercise, this is real. He sees fear in the eyes of the Asgardians, hears their cries of distress. something shifts within him. His usual instinct to retreat or manipulate fades, replaced by a surprising surge of protectiveness. He cannot, he realizes, stand by and watch his home fall. The thought is alien, yet undeniably powerful, a new anchor in his usually self-serving mind. His hands begin to glow with a familiar, emerald light. Loki plunges into the heart of the battle, not with a grand, showy display, but with precise, strategic magic. He conjures powerful force fields, shielding groups of civilians from incoming fire. He creates intricate illusions, diverting enemy attention and creating openings for the Asgardian guards. He even teleports a fallen soldier to safety, a selfless act that surprises even himself. His movements are fluid, his spells potent and focused. He's no longer just flailing. He's fighting with purpose, defending others. He sees an alien commander preparing a devastating blast aimed at a crowded plaza. Without thinking, Loki conjures a massive magical shield, absorbing the impact, the force rippling through him. He holds his ground, unyielding. As Loki stands his ground, repelling wave after wave of attackers, the alien general, a towering figure shrouded in dark armor, finally turns its attention to him. The general raises a hand, and the shadowy energy around them intensifies. But then, to Loki's shock, the general's helmet retracts, revealing not an alien face, but the familiar, sneering visage of a powerful sorcerer, long thought banished from Asgard. "You've grown stronger, little prince," the sorcerer snarls, his eyes glowing with malevolent power. But this was all part of the plan. Loki's blood runs cold. A plan? Thor, fighting nearby, pauses, Mjolnir mid-swing, his eyes widening in dawning horror. The sorcerer laughs, a chilling sound that echoes across the battlefield. The sorcerer reveals his treachery. This entire invasion, the very training Loki has undergone, has been meticulously orchestrated. Not by Frigga, but by him. He had subtly manipulated Loki's lessons, whispering suggestions into his mind, guiding his magical development not for growth, but for a far more sinister purpose. "I needed you to be powerful, Loki," the sorcerer explains, his voice dripping with condescension. "A true instrument. And now you are." Loki stares, a whirlwind of disbelief and betrayal washing over him. His growth, his moments of pride, his nascent sense of heroism, all of it was a lie, a means to an end for this ancient enemy. Thor, realizing the depth of the deception, roars in fury, but the sorcerer merely smiles. Before Loki can react, before Thor can even reach him, the sorcerer unleashes a burst of dark energy. It strikes Loki, not with destructive force, but with an insidious, binding magic. Glowing, ethereal chains erupt from the energy, coiling around Loki's wrists, his ankles, his very essence. He tries to fight it, to break free, but his newfound power, ironically, is what makes him a perfect conduit. His eyes, moments ago filled with burgeoning heroism, now dull slightly, a vacant look replacing the fire. The sorcerer cackles triumphantly. "And now, dear Loki, you are truly mine." Loki stands motionless, his body now under the sorcerer's direct control, a powerful weapon turned against Asgard. His training has indeed culminated, but not in growth, rather in becoming the ultimate pawn. The sorcerer gestures, and Loki, now a puppet, begins to conjure dark, destructive magic, aiming it at the Asgardian defenders. Thor watches in horror, witnessing his brother, his mind controlled, become the very enemy he fought against. But as Loki unleashes a dark blast, a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker crosses his eyes, a momentary flash of green within the dullness. It is gone as quickly as it appears, but it's enough. A spark, a remnant of Loki's true self, buried deep beneath the sorcerer's control. The sorcerer doesn't notice. Thor, however, catches it, a sliver of hope in the overwhelming despair. He knows now what he must do. The true battle for Loki's soul has just begun. What will Thor do to free his brother from this insidious control? And can Loki truly break free from the sorcerer's grasp?